In this podcast, I'll talk about the notion of harm reduction and prevention strategies in general as it relates to lifespan psychology. And this subject is often found in the early childhood section of a lifespan or developmental psychology course. Of course, we're talking about children, how to keep them safe, and it sounds a lot like common sense, but there's actually a strategy behind it at the societal level as well as the individual level at home. And let me go through some terms here and explain them. Oftentimes they may be called harm reduction strategies or injury control. And I think if you just Google harm reduction, you'll see a lot of this application in terms of treating people with substance abuse and addiction. There are many approaches to do that, and harm reduction is one that seems to be well documented just when you do an online search. And the idea here in general about harm reduction, again, is a prevention strategy to anticipate, control, prevent dangerous activities and consequences. And it's a general perspective and a belief that accidents are not random things that are just bound to happen, that they can be prevented, made less harmful if we take more proactive measures. And there are 3 levels of prevention that I'll talk about here briefly. And the first one is called primary prevention. And this is the more macro, bigger level type of prevention. It's how we build the building. It's how we construct our roads. Okay? For example, if your streets do not have potholes, that they're made a certain way and high quality, that would prevent a lot of accidents. If the lines, the markers are clear at night, okay, guardrails, bridges, building codes for commercial and home buildings, right, help prevent injuries in general. So these are more large scale type prevention efforts to prevent many different kinds of incidents from happening. In some downtown urban areas, to prevent congestion, because when you have congestion of traffic, you're more likely to have problems. And so you'll see coordinated traffic lights. Now the next level that becomes more specific is called secondary prevention. And these are actions that we take to reduce and avoid injury or harm in a high risk situation. So it's much more specific, such as hitting the brakes in your car. That is secondary prevention. Okay, the building of the car with certain standards, that's primary prevention. But you, the human being, pressing on the brake pedal to avoid an accident, that is called secondary prevention. Then this is before an incident, preventing it from happening. So let's say in front of a school, right? So it's not just about the roads being smooth and safe, but in front of a school, having the flashing school zone lights or speed bumps. Okay, those are secondary prevention because they're very specific to preventing us from hitting students in that place. Pedestrian crosswalk signals. Okay, so it's not just drawing of the lines so you know where to cross, but actually those signals that indicate when it is appropriate to cross. I should mention that if you ever visit the country of Taiwan and go to Taipei and maybe some of the other bigger cities, and if you pay close attention to the crosswalk signals, that it's not just a stationary, static red person, don't walk, and green, emoji for walking, or icon rather, but it's animated. So you see a little animated person walking and it's lit up white or green at first. And then about halfway through, and there's often a numerical countdown as well, you'll see this animated human walking faster and faster. So it's kind of amusing to cross the street in Taiwan. Okay, so we have primary prevention, secondary prevention, and the third one is tertiary prevention. So tertiary prevention is still a form of prevention, but the incident has already occurred. So these are actions that we take to prevent further damage. So think of medical treatment, okay? That are taking medication. This is doing something after an event has already happened, okay, to prevent disability. So an EMT, right, stabilizing someone's neck after a car accident, okay, that's an example of tertiary prevention. So it's something that we do to reduce further damage after something has occurred, okay? So just to summarize, primary prevention is sort of this large scale during the construction phase of whatever it is in our environment that tends to reduce accidents. Secondary prevention is much more specific, that helps us to prevent incidences in high-risk situations or for people. So like putting on a medical mask or using hand sanitizer in a hospital environment. That's secondary prevention. It's much more specific and targeted. And then there's tertiary prevention, things that we do, such as putting on a Band-Aid, stopping the bleeding, immobilizing someone after a car accident. These are things that we do to prevent an injury from getting worse. Okay, I hope that makes sense. This is Dr. C, and I'll talk to you soon.